I wanted to jump next to On the Basis of Sex. I recently watched RBG, the documentary this year that made quite a bit of money for documentaries. I mean, we talked about documentaries having a great year in 2018, and On the Basis of Sex by directed by Mimi Letter, starring Felicity Jones, Armie Hammer, with a great supporting cast: Justin Theroux, Sam Waterston, Stephen Root, just a couple of them. I feel like it captures a lot of the essence of what's kind of brought up in the documentary. And the documentary covers RBG's entire life, and the film only focuses on really her beginning of grad school to the time that she defends her first case in front of a state Supreme Court, the Colorado State Supreme Court, I should say. I think it's a well done movie. Ultimately forgettable, but I feel like kind of where I want to start the discussion is Felicity Jones's performance, because while I feel like this is a nice film and one that I enjoy watching and I won't mind going back to down the line, I don't know if she really captures RBG. What it means to be Ruth Bader Ginsburg in that full essence. I think she gives a good performance, but there's something about Ruth Bader Ginsburg as like this woman who, with this, I don't know, this staunchness and this ability to like have this great presence and this calmness and this confidence that comes through in almost any situation. I mean, she's the notorious not defender. She writes the dissenter, yes, the notorious dissenter of the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Jones gives her that gravitas in this role. What did you think?
I mean, do they capture a lot of that in the RBG doc? I haven't seen the doc, but like, do they capture a lot of what she was like when she was young?
Basically, the way that they frame her in the documentary is that she was this very serious girl who was incredibly smart, and who was incredibly capable and just kind of overcame all these obstacles that were placed in front of her. And a lot of them that they talk about and they show in the film, her husband having these illness, facing blatant sexism. But they do highlight for her how she had all of these moments throughout her life where she basically had this obstacle put in front of her, people blatantly saying to her, you can't do this. And she just was like, nah, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, I'm going to figure it out. And I think that the relationship that they show in the movie is pretty spot on for what they describe in the doc, that Martin was kind of like the heart and soul of the family, that he was kind of driving force, and RBG was really like the brains and the just the overall smarts. And not taking anything away from Martin Ginsberg, who seems to be an incredibly accomplished and brilliant man himself, but just brought more heart and kind of that like sturdiness, whereas RBG was just like fully intellectual and fully like pushing boundaries all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have really an issue with it. I mean, for me, I just kind of went in with an open mind because like the whole notorious RBG persona that like most people today think of, we all think of her as an older woman, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this movie set way before that. Like, she didn't get put on the Supreme Court till she was 60 years old. She's like 85 now. So like we're way before that. So I don't really have a problem with her like persona not being like fully developed yet. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, if we didn't pick Felicity Jones, who are we gonna pick? Because in terms of like in-demand actors for a movie that at one time had award aspirations, I mean, she fits that mold. She's been nominated before. She's also quite short. I think she fits, and she's a talented actress. I think, look at her, a lot of her recent choices. She's done a lot of different things. So having her just kind of fill in and be like a strong, independent woman in face of a lot of challenges at the time, I think she did pretty well. I mean, I think my issues with the film, I like the film. I think it's really enjoyable and the message is strong, but I think it's just the whole movie itself is just kind of simple, if that makes sense, where it's kind of a traditional, straightforward biopic for good and bad, And I think because the cast is pretty well done and charming, and because the message is really well delivered at the end, you kind of overlook that. I
Right.
think ultimately the reason this movie didn't pick up enough award steam, and while there is a a middling review or two out there about this, is just because what you see is what you get. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Do you know who was originally supposed to play RBG in this and backed out for? I don't really remember the reason.
I don't
It
know.
wasn't. It was supposed to be Natalie Portman.
Huh. I mean, she's done a lot of historical figures recently. She did Jackie Kennedy.
Yep.
Um, yeah, that'd be interesting. That's honestly kind of a similar mold. Someone who does a lot of
Yep.
different things, smaller woman. You know,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And I guess I go back to kind of that moment where she starts to give her appeal or to the Colorado State Supreme Court, where she kind of starts to talk and then like trips over her words a bit. And
Yeah.
they actually come back to this in the doc, and RBG herself is like, yeah, I like the film, but I never tripped over my words. And like just the way she delivered it, I was like, that's the fucking attitude right there. That like, even
Sure.
though she faced all these like difficult obstacles, she like took them on with grace and like strength that I think came across at points in the movie, and other times it felt like she was almost like gaining that strength from her daughter in ways, which I thought was a really interesting
Mhm.
dynamic. Who I forgot to write down what that actress's name was, but she was, I think, fantastic in the film.
Yeah, she'll be. I forgot her name too. She'll be in that new Alice Garland show, Devs, coming out later this year. So looking forward to that. Um, yeah, I think. I mean, and perhaps that's some creative license, right? Even though it's supposed to be
Right.
more or less presented as biopic.
Dramatic effect.
Yeah, and ultimately, it just doesn't really transcend the source material, which again is some pretty interesting and pretty compelling stuff considering it's RPG, right?
Right.
Um, but ultimately, I think it's well done because the themes of sexism and equality and really just that courtroom scene at the end, I think is kind of tough to deny. But ultimately, I think it's just kind of probably disappointed some people that wanted it to be like a much bigger movie. Like, why wasn't this Darkest Hour? There just wasn't a lot of flair with this, and I think part of that's probably the direction, part of that's probably the screenplay. It's all just kind of simple and straightforward. It's like, hey, we're gonna make a movie about RBG in this time, and that's what they did. No more, no less. So,
Right.
I recommended. I think the cast is pretty strong. I mean, it's nice to see Armie Hammer kind of playing like something besides like the leading man,
Yep.
and while it's funny to watch them because Armie Hammer's like 6'4", and Felicity Jones is like what 5'2" or whatever. Like there's that one scene, I'm like, wow, they never show height differences like that. That was that was interesting. But I thought they had a nice warm relationship, and they're both just charismatic people.
Yep.
I thought Stephen Root and Watterson, I mean, they're fine, they're good actors, but I mean, they're pretty one note as like quote villains, right? Sure. My other one note was Jack Reynor, who plays like their young lawyer working for them. He literally looked like Sam Darnold in this movie to me, and I was disappointed considering what he was saying.
I'm definitely gonna bring that back up when football season comes. Well, football season for you comes back around. My season just started this past weekend.
You have to draft in 3 months, son.
But no, I agree. I think I really like Justin Theroux in this film. Although I gotta be honest, they kind of gave Mia Wolf like a bad painted him in a bad light here. Just kind of as like kind of a pussy at the whatever point that they find him in his career here, where he's kind of stopped taking on these things. And I guess Ruth in some way inspires him, or is supposed to inspire him to like continue fighting, which I guess is a really nice message. I agree on Armie Hammer. I thought he was probably my favorite part of the film, but he gets to be like that charming, like just kind of fun guy who is like the strength of the film and is doing the right thing all the time. It's a great role for him to be in. And goddamn, for Martin Ginsberg, I mean, no offense to him, he, like I said, very accomplished person. Someday I hope to get the glow up that he's gotten in a film.
Yeah.
If Armie Hammer can play me someday, like Timothy Chalamet doing the Pat Sheehan story in
that's
10 years, please,
yeah,
God. But no, I definitely recommend it. Check it out. And yeah, I think it's a good film, not great, and probably one we won't be talking about for awards season.